All right, let's jump straight into Numbers chapter 33 for this deep dive.
Okay.
And this chapter, well, it's kind of unusual, isn't it? It's basically this incredibly detailed travel log.
It really is. Not so much narrative, more like an itinerary, stage by stage, where they went for 40 years.
Exactly. A road trip map from the ancient world, you could say. Recorded by Moses, commanded by God.
Mm-hmm. And it starts right at that crucial moment, leaving Egypt.
Yeah, day 15 of the first month. So the day right after the Passover from Ramesses.
And it makes a point of saying they marched out boldly.
Right, in full view of all the Egyptians, which is quite a statement.
Especially given the context, the text immediately adds the Egyptians were burying their firstborn.
Wow, yeah, the ones the Lord had struck down. The text ties it directly to judgment on Egypt's gods.
So their departure is set against this really stark backdrop of death and divine power.
Heavy stuff to start the journey. So, from Ramses, where do they go first, according to the list?
First stop is Sukkoth. Then they move to Etham, which it notes is on the edge of the desert.
Okay, edge of the desert. Makes sense.
But then, interestingly, it says they turned back from Etham back towards Pi Hahiroth.
Ah, is that the Red Sea crossing?
That seems to be the reference, yeah. Passing through the sea into the desert. It's just slipped into this geographical list.
Amazing how these huge events are just marked as points on the map here.
Right. After that, they're properly into the wilderness journey. The list continues, stop after stop.
And some stops get a little more detailed, don't they? Not just names.
They do. Like Mara, which is mentioned as being 3 days into the desert of Etham.
Okay.
And then there's Elim. That one gets a specific description.
Oh, yeah, the 12 springs and 70 palm trees.
Exactly. That detail really paints a picture, doesn't it? An oasis. A place of, real relief.
A huge contrast, I imagine, to somewhere like Rephidim.
Definitely. Because for Rephidim, the text explicitly states there was no water for the people to drink.
So you get these little hints of the actual experience, hardship here, provision there, embedded in the list.
Mm-hmm. And after Rephidim, the next stop listed is the desert of Sinai.
A hugely significant location, obviously, just listed here as the next campsite.
Yeah. And the list it just keeps going after that. Dofka, Alush, Hazroth, Rithma.
So many names. Rimmon Perez, Libna, Rissa.
It really hammers home the sheer length of time, doesn't it? Just reading them.
It absolutely does. Dozens of stops. It emphasizes that this was a long, winding, 40-year period in the wilderness.
So what's the thinking behind recording every single one? Is it purely for the historical record or something more?
Well, I think it certainly serves as a concrete record. It provides the geographical framework for everything else that happened during those decades.
Right. It anchors the stories we read elsewhere.
Exactly. It grounds it, makes it clear this wasn't just like a symbolic wandering. It was a real journey, step by step, guided or sometimes diverted. It underscores the reality of it all.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, within this long list, there's a point where we get a pretty specific time marker, right?
Yes, Mount Hor.
Yeah.
On the border of Edom. And something significant happens there.
Very significant. It's not just another camp. The text says Aaron the priest went up the mountain there at God's command, and he died there.
Wow. And the detail is incredible.
It really is. It gives the exact date, the first day of the 5th month of the 40th year after they left Egypt.
The 40th year, so they're right near the end of the wilderness period.
Precisely. And it even gives Aaron's age 123.
So this stop isn't just geographical, it's a major chronological milestone and marks the passing of a key figure right before they enter the land.
It really does. It fixes that point in time very clearly. And interestingly, the text also slips in a note there that the Canaanite king of Era heard they were coming.
Ah, so their presence is starting to be felt in the region they're approaching.
Seems so. Their reputation, or at least news of them, was spreading.
Okay, so after Mount Hor and Aaron's death, the list continues.
Yeah, several more stops are listed. Zalmona, Punon, Oboth, Ayabarim, leading them finally.
To the end point, within this chapter anyway.
Right, which is the plains of Moab. Specifically by the Jordan River, right across from Jericho.
Okay, so journey's end. As far as this itinerary goes, they've arrived at the threshold.
Exactly. The text even specifies where they camped along the Jordan from Beth Jeshimoth up to Abel Shittim, poised, ready to cross.
So you have this meticulous 40-year travel record, all culminating right there at the border. And then the chapter just shifts, doesn't it?
Completely. Still on the plains of Moab, same location, but suddenly it's not about the journey behind them, it's the Lord speaking to Moses about what comes next.
Which is crossing the Jordan.
Crossing the Jordan into Canaan, and the instruction is, well, it's direct. Drive out all the inhabitants of the land before you.
All of them, not just defeat them militarily.
No, it's more than that. It explicitly says, destroy all their carved images and their cast idols and demolish all their high places.
So it's a command with a very strong religious and cultural dimension, too, a complete break.
And the reason given is just as direct. Take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have given you the land to possess.
So it's presented as a divine grant, but one they have to actively claim by following these instructions.
Precisely. And it even goes into the how-to of settling.
Ah, the distribution of the land.
Yeah. It says to distribute it by lot, according to your clans.
Okay, by lot.
Yeah.
And is it equal shares?
No, it specifies, to a larger group, give a larger inheritance, and to a smaller group, a smaller one.
It's proportional.
Right. Makes sense. Based on ancestral tribes. So the whole framework for settlement is laid out right there.
It is. The journey log ends, and immediately you get the blueprint for taking and dividing the land.
But it doesn't stop there, does it? There's something else after the instructions.
Right. There's a crucial but if, a really serious warning.
Okay, what's the warning?
It addresses what happens if they don't follow that first command, if they don't drive out all the inhabitants.
The language used is incredibly vivid. Those you allow to remain will become barbs in your eyes and thorns in your sides.
Oof. That's evocative.
Yeah.
Sounds like constant pain and trouble.
That's exactly the implication. The text continues, they will give you trouble in the land where you will live, a direct consequence of partial obedience or disobedience.
Just trouble. Or is there more? It sounds like there might be more.
There is. The warning culminates in something even more severe.
What is it?
The final line is, and then I will do to you what I plan to do to them.
Wow. So hang on. If the Israelites fail to drive out the Canaanites as commanded, God will treat the Israelites the same way he intended to treat the Canaanites.
That's exactly what it says. Their failure to execute the judgment means that judgment ultimately falls on them instead.
That creates this really stark, almost chilling symmetry, doesn't it? The promise of the land is tied absolutely to obeying this command about its inhabitants.
It seems so. Disobedience leads to them inheriting the curse, not the blessing.
So you have this long, winding, meticulously detailed journey covering 40 years, followed immediately by these incredibly sharp, uncompromising instructions and warnings right at the destination.
Yeah, the contrast is striking. It suggests, maybe, that the whole 40 years wasn't just about getting to the place.
But about being prepared for this moment,
Yeah.
this test of absolute faithfulness.
Perhaps. Prepared for a moment where obedience has these incredibly high stakes attached.
So as we finish this deep dive in Numbers 33, this exhaustive travel log ending right at the border, followed by this stark mandate and warning, what does it make you think about, for us today?
Well, it's interesting to consider, isn't it? The relationship between maybe our own long journeys, the processes we go through, and then arriving at a point where what's required is maybe very clear, very demanding obedience.
And where the culmination isn't necessarily rest, but maybe a new and perhaps harder phase with serious consequences tied to our choices.
Yeah. What does it mean when reaching the promised land moment actually brings a heightened call to faithfulness with everything on the line?
Definitely something to reflect on.